So today under PYC 1501, we'll be discussing group functioning and social issues. At times they say societal issues. Group functioning and social issues, that's what we'll be doing for 2 hours. Then next week, we don't have a class. We'll meet again on the 11th. On the 11th, we'll discuss the self. On the 18th, I combine both psychological problems and science of psychology. The last chapter will be psychology of work. In our last class, then, we will discuss almost each and every chapter, or it will depend on your questions. I'll take your questions, exam-based questions, regarding the content of what you have been studied. So I won't answer multiple choice question, past exam question papers. However, I'll assist you on how to answer questions, how to master multiple choice questions, not giving you answers. I'm not allowed to do that. So I'll make sure, however, that I'll assist you in how to answer questions in this session on the second, before you write PYC 1501. Start group functioning. Group functioning, PYC 1502 group functioning. My name is Siabonga Zwane. You can call me Sia. Nature of group functioning. Number one, each and every time when you study, ask yourself a few questions like, why is it that we are dealing with groups? Why is it that the nature of groups? Why are we studying about groups? Some students will say, why are we studying a group? Groups need to be studied by students who are doing sociology, students who are doing anthropology or development studies. What is the importance of group functioning? Why are we studying about group as psychology students, human behaviorist students? So the answer to your question is group functioning. As an aspiring psychologist or a person who is working with people, remember, we are not living in isolation. We are living with people. Groups of people. Within a group, it's not easy to work within a group. Again, it's not easy again to work alone. You need people. And the combination of people has different elements. A group is comprises of different aspects. Within a group, there are negative aspects within a group, there are positive aspects within a group. There are challenging aspects. Negative aspects, we must say, within a group, now again, we'll find ourselves, some people are becoming jealous. There are fights within the group. There are certain conflicts within the groups. If not conflicts, certain members like to outshine others within a group. Lie, not contribute within a group. Group comprises of different cultures, different values. People are unique. There's the individual uniqueness. It's a challenge to work in a group. Once you open a company now, your company will consist of individuals who are working for you. One of the challenges is complaints. So-and-so doesn't want to work with people. So-and-so stole even your lunchbox. So-and-so didn't come to work. I tried to phone him, I can't get hold of him because he or she's giving me attitude. So those are the group dynamics. You have to find in the working environment, there are team buildings. There are assessments now and again to ensure that you are good in working with people, teamwork. So group functioning is the most essential part in the world, whether it's workplace setting, family setting. As a psychologist, sometimes they consult you for family therapy because there are conflicts within the family. So as a psychologist, human behaviorist, or social worker, you need to ensure that you have an ability to deal with different groups that comprise of different characteristics. That's why the groups are important for psychology students. You'll be hired as a psychologist in a certain company. Once you become a consultant, it depends. It depends on your career aspirations. There are psychologists, people who work for organizations that health facilities. Some will work for corporate business settings. Some will open their consultations. Their consultation will be hired by companies. for temporary basis to deal with certain aspects. Those companies that cannot afford to have a psychologist that they can pay on monthly basis, they prefer to use you as a service provider when they need you. They will ask you in one team, in one of the organizations, they write you a letter, they say, our company is struggling with group conflicts, and we saw your company profile. We would like you to come and assist us on how to manage family conflicts, on how to teach people about the cultural differences, on how to make sure that there's a team efficiency within our company. Then you need to go there as a human being, as a consultant. So this is the first key information that you need to know about groupings. You think groupings in terms of a psychological aspect, grouping in a psychological setting, whether it's corporate, health facility, government institution, or family settings, depending on your specialty as a psychologist. We can start now. The nature of group functioning. The nature of group functioning. Group functioning is divided into three aspects, 3 units, or in short, 3 chapters. There's attributes of human groups, differentiation of groups, interaction of groups, divided into 3. Attributes, differentiation, interaction. Attributes of group. The concept attribute. As a university student, not just as a psychologist or student psychology, you need to familiarize yourself with this concept. Have an ability to apply them in different contexts. When they say attributes of human groups, you need to ask yourself what comes into your mind when they say attributes. Because you might read the whole chapter only to find that you failed. You don't understand the chapter because you failed to understand the first concept, attributes. So before you study, you break down these words. It's a duty to break down these words. When they say the nature of group functioning, like if I can say now, the nature of human being. What is the nature of human being? You break down the human being. The nature of human being, you need to break down. Perhaps the human being is divided into 4. You say there's a soul, there's a spirit, psychological, and the physical part. Or for spiritual, physical, psychological, you can say 3. Human being is divided into 3, meaning that's the nature of the human being. So the nature of group functioning is divided into 3: attributes, human groups, differentiation, interaction. Attributes of human group. What makes up human group? The characteristics within the human groups, the attributes, what influences the human groups. For us to say this is a group, what does the group consist of? That is attributes. You can break down in different phases. Elements of human groups, characteristics of human groups, what does human groups are made up of? You break it down. Once you break it down, it becomes much easier when you study, because you study with expectations. You know what you're looking for, instead of studying, finishing the 10 lines without understanding what is the chapters based on. So as a university student, that's what you need to do. You look at the headlines. When you in the newspaper, the headlines catches you first before you even study the content. Same applies to the content in university. You look at the first word, the heading, then you break it down to make it your own. As soon as you study with expectations. You're looking for something, and it will surprise you that what you're looking for is not actually what you're looking for. That's an interesting part of it. Attributes, so it's the elements, the characteristics of human group, what's made up, what's the key aspects under human group. Differentiation of human groups, the type of groupings. How can you differentiate groups? Groups that differ. How can you differentiate groups? Differentiation. How can you distinguish the groups? How can you compare the groupings? Interaction of grouping. Interaction, you think of communication, the interpersonal, mostly communication, in short. Attribute of human group. Like I've said, attribute of human group has to do with the characteristics of human group. It's a key before studying. They say It says characteristics of group. Group structures. There's a group structure and a group process. For you to understand the groups, just know that there's a group structure and a group process. Group structure refers to its elements and the way in which these are organized in a circular way. A group structure, the structure of the group, refers to its elements, the element within the group, what makes up the group, and the ways in which these are organized in a circular way. In a circular way, meaning within a group, you need to discuss among each other. We are a group because of people, not because of one individual. When they say in a circular way, there needs to be a relationship between a group and its elements. You need to give us each other an opportunity to have a say within a group. The circular relationship between a group and its elements is also evident in the relationship amongst the elements. For instance, in this current group, a group of UNISA students doing studying psychology, the module PYC1502, meaning we are a circular group, a group of students. What makes you common? Common is that you're studying the same module. Elements. The circular relationship between a group and its element is also evident in the relationship amongst elements. So what makes you unique is what you're studying. The element is what you are studying. Your qualifications, your interests. Then there's a group process. What is group process? Group process has to do with, refer to the way in which the elements of the group interact and how this interaction evolve over time. The interaction within the group and how does this interaction evolve over time. Let me read it from the textbook, both the group structure and the group process. In the textbook, they say, a group structure is a circular way. On the other hand, a group is made up of a certain elements, in the sense that the group's group characteristics come from those of its elements. On the other hand, however, membership of a group is determined by the characteristics of the group. So membership of the group is determined by the characteristics of the group. Like I've said, what makes you common is what you're studying. Obviously, because you're studying psychology, one can assume that you have the same interest. You are eager to study human mind. You are eager to help other people. You are eager to either work in a health setting, corporate setting, or consult. Some they study because psychology, because they want the module to work on themselves. They're trying to work on themselves, on their personality. So the characteristics might be the same. Not might be the same. There are certain aspects of it are the same. There is a group norm that determines whether or not an element can be considered a group member of the group. There is a group norm that determines whether or not the elements. So within this group, as psychology students, meaning you have set boundaries. That is a group for psychology students because we are doing this module. You don't want anyone who are doing any other module because that will confuse you. Meaning you are breaking the group structure. The circular relationship between a group and its elements is also evident in the relationship amongst elements. Elements that form parts of the group share particular characteristics and are therefore related to one another. So the reason I'm studying this is it might sound simple when I'm explaining it. However, when it comes to multiple choice questions, remember multiple choice questions in one chapter, we might choose to ask you 3 questions in one chapter, meaning anything that you think is relevant for in relation to the content this year will feature it in the exam. So it is difficult for you to detect which answers will come up. They might come up just from my slides that I've been giving you, or straight from the textbook. Meaning, even though you have this note, which are a summary, you still need to consult your prescribed book to make sure that you complement the information. You use your multiple choice questions. Multiple choice question under 101 and also 001. Make sure you have to do all the multiple choice questions, whether it's first semester or second semester, because you never know. Some questions are a repetition. Some questions are repeated exactly. Some are repeated but using different language, just to test your knowledge. We play around words because the examiners can do that. The lecturers can do that. So make sure that when I give you the notes, as I'm explaining to you, you have a textbook. When you study, you just broaden up your knowledge. These are just to stimulate your mind on what is your understanding of the characteristics, the group structure, and group elements. But the whole information you study on your own. Hope I'm clear. You say the strength of this relationship are indicated of a core group, but the group need to be uniformly cohesive. So for now, yeah, I was reading the group structure, the elements under the group structure. Let's read group process under the textbook. Apart from group structure, group have process. Process indicates change over time. They say process indicates changes over time. Why? The group setting, you can meet today and organize a group. You find that you are so productive. It's so interesting to be part of this group. Come the next day, things are different. So group evolve over time. Group cannot be constant. For the fact that you have the same elements, are doing the same module, doesn't mean that things will run smooth each and every day. So the dynamic changes over time. Now and again they change. That the group does not remain static, neither does it fluctuate randomly. Process means group evolve in a certain direction. This may not happen smoothly. The group may move in various and even opposite directions because process involve interactions among the elements of the group. This interaction may not pull in the same direction, but may oppose one another, leading to unexpected movement of the group. So you are required as aspiring psychologists, social work, human behaviorists, to give people guidance on how to manage if things change, how to manage them, and there's a possibility that groups differs. So it's a responsibility once they hire you as a consultant to break down this concept that there's a group structure and a group process for them to understand themselves. Let's move on. Attributes of human group. Now we are trying to be let's be more specific regarding the chapter. The attributes of human group, like I've said, the elements, the characteristics. Structure of human group as well as process of human group. Structure of human group comprises of human membership, group norms, group cohesion, and social metric structure. Whereas the process of human group involves interaction among members, common goals, group polarization, group conflict, groupthink, patterns of leadership, and followership, not fellowship, followership. Group structure. What is human membership? What do they mean by human membership within a group structure? They mention that for human group, it is not sufficient simply to assign a person to a group. It is not sufficient simply to assign a person to a group. The members need to be aware that they are members of the group, and this means that they have to have an experience of belonging to it. That is point number one. When you join a group for a particular reason, you join it knowingly what is it that you want to benefit, because we have seen some similarities or differences, or there's a particular interest. So you see, it is not sufficient to assign a person to a group. So it is not sufficient to assign a person to a group. the members need to be aware that they are members of the group. So it become when they say the members need to be aware that they are part of the certain group. As soon as you are invited to become part of the group, as soon as you join the group, you need to be aware that you are part of the group. By being aware, they mean you need to be willing. You need to be. Remember, you're not forced to join the group. You need to be willing to be a participant. You need to know what you have joined the group for. This means that they have to experience the belonging to the group. Again, as soon as you accept that, you will feel a sense of belonging within the group. You will feel a sense of belonging because you know now that you have similarities, you can benefit from this group. Sense of belonging, that is when you are able to express yourself. To experience a group membership, the members have to have at least one thing in common. How can that happen? You need to have at least one thing in common amongst one another. One thing in common in this context, you are doing the same module. Then the rest is history. You are doing the same module. That is normally when you enter the group for the first time, you introduce one another, you are doing the module. As soon as you sit down, that's when you ask which qualification you are doing. Are you doing counseling psychology, applied psychology into professional context? Are you doing community development, industrial psychology? You discuss. How many modules do you have? That's the more you identify one another. Where do we stay? Why have you chosen psychology? That's a group membership. It allows you to get to know one another. They have to believe that the benefits of the membership outweigh the disadvantage. Again, under group membership, they say you have to believe that the group membership, you have to believe that you as a group of PYC1502 students, you are there to benefit the group. You are there to make sure that you get sufficient information, particularly in the module. Yes, there are disadvantages, the challenges that you come across. However, stick on the goal. The goal is to get as much information as you can. They say gradually become more committed to the group and socially more integrated into it. That is group membership. So in short, the key aspect under human membership, they say it is not sufficient to assign a person to a group. The group, you need to have something in common. You need to be aware that you are part of the group. You need to believe that you'll benefit in this group, even though there are disadvantages. Secondly, group norms. Group norms, group norms. Norms, in short, we can say are the ways of living, the rules that regulate the group, their norms, ways of living, rules that regulate the group. Group norms are shared expectations about the kinds of behavior that are acquired by all group members. Group norms are shared expectations about the kind of behaviors. As soon as we enter the group, we have rules or the different ways that are expected, the ways that are expected to behave amongst the group. If we say come, we need to meet 9 o'clock. Those are part of the rules. You don't eat while you are studying. Make sure that when your phone rings, you get outside or you switch off the phone. So those are the rules that you make among yourself. No one makes rules. You make the rules among yourself. So they say group members share expectations. So that's the key, shared expectations. Group members share the expectation. What is it that you like to achieve? You write it down. About the kinds of behaviors that are required by all group members. These norms are rules that prescribe or forbid certain behaviors, and to be a good member, one has to submit to them. To be a good member, you need to make sure that you adhere to the given rules. Remember, all of you discuss the rules. You are given an opportunity to discuss the rules. You know about the rules. As soon as you break the rules, meaning you are disrespecting the group because you were there. If you didn't like the rule, you should have raised your voice that I don't like this rule. Group norms that put pressure on members. Group norms that puts pressure on members to conform. In this instance, they determine group membership. Group norms originate in three ways. One, you need to formulate a group leader, group experience, transferred from other groups. It transfers from other groups. So with regard to group, as they mentioned, the group norms, either you're joining this group because you have been referred by, you're coming from the other group, transfers from the other groups. The product also group experience, the group leader. That's what you need to consider when formulating these groups. Group cohesion. Group cohesion refers to the strength of the relationship among group members, the strength, cohesion, strength, group strength. Group cohesion refers to the strength of the relationship among group members. We can recognize high cohesion groups by the behavior of their members. We can determine the strength of the group by the behavior of their members. How? Members of high cohesive group. When they say members of high cohesive group, are those members who stick to one another, is the group strength. Members of a high cohesive group identify strongly with the group. When you believe in the goals of the group, when you have common goals, when you believe in the benefits of the group, meaning you have group cohesion, you believe in what you are here for. You believe in the strength of the members of the group. That's a group cohesion. They say members of a high group cohesion. When you have high group cohesion, meaning you have equal expectations, you support each other's goals, you support one another, you believe in the structure of the group. They say when you have high cohesion, members of high cohesive group identify strongly with the group. They defend it against outside criticism. Again, you defend your group against outside criticism. The cohesion of the group is forced from the inside as well as from the outside. Group members may form a tight group because they have a strong sense of joint destiny, inside force. They may stand together because their group is threatened by the outsiders. So group cohesion is threatened by the outside forces, the outsiders. So it's a duty to make sure. It's a duty to make sure that you are able to defend the group from the outsiders. That is group cohesion. It's a group strength. We can take this again to when we are in our friendships. When someone aside from your friendship or your family is a group as well. When someone outside your family criticizes one member of your family, instead of joining the conversation, criticizes, you need to defend your family. That's what they are saying to determine a group strength. The more you defend one another, no external enemy will able to enter. However, when you gossip, criticize one another, particularly from the outside group, the group barrier is broken. You become weak because you have loose ends. So you need to stick to one another. That's what they are trying to say, group cohesion. When they criticize you outside, you stand by a group. You don't criticize back, but you defend. Group cohesion. Fourthly, social metric structure. Social metric structure. Social metric. Social comes from social. Metric, I'm not sure. Group members are not equally attracted to one another. That's the most important point. For the fact that you are in a same group studying psychology, that doesn't mean that you like one another or you are friends. You are here for your purpose. Workplace setting, as a group, you are there to work. Then the rest is additional. It's up to you to choose whether you form friendships or you like one another. But according to group members are not equally attracted. So are not equally attracted to one another. You cannot force that. In general, some members are better liked than others. Particularly, group members have a particular preference as to whom they like or dislike. There's no wrong or right correct answer. These patterns of liking and disliking forms a group sociometric structure, which is influenced by the degree of task orientation. If a group is strongly task oriented, there is a less opportunity for it to concentrate on interpersonal relationship. Do you see that? They say if the group focus more on the goal of the organization, the goal of the team, focus more on what to achieve, there's less opportunity to socialize, so to engage in interpersonal relationship. But you focus on the goals. That is why now and again, if you go to your manager or supervisor complaining about your fellow employee, yes, at first you might, as a manager, you take it in consideration that, okay, let me speak to these people. However, now and again, this grows up, this form of complaint or dislike conflict continues. In the end, you need to inform, you are here for work, not interpersonal relationship. Make sure that when you sign a contract, that you will assist their company to reach its objective. If someone dislikes you, there's nothing that can be done. The least thing that you can do perhaps is place you in different job opportunities so that you won't see together, you won't see one another. Because the most important thing is to focus on the goal. That's why here they say, if a group is strong, task-oriented, if the group is goal-driven, there's less opportunity for it to concentrate on interpersonal relationship. That's the most important aspect. The sociometric structure and the nature of the task performed by the group lead to identifiable communication patterns. Groups often develop a particular pattern of communication which structure the way in which information flows within them. A group pattern of communication is known as communication network. The network determines the hierarchy of communication, who speaks to whom does not speak to whom. That is a group metric structure. So the structure in the sense is that within an organizational setting, because there's a social metric structure, goal directed, at times you are told that as a junior employee, you are not expected to go direct perhaps to the general director. You need to pass through the supervisor, from the supervisor, manager, then the message can be directed straight to the director of the company. So that's what they're emphasizing again. That employees have an open channels of communication. Management, they can speak to one another. For employee to speak to higher level personnel above the management, the manager, you need to speak to the manager first or the supervisor. So that what they're emphasizing in terms of the sociometric structures. Moving on, the process of human group. The process of human group, one, interaction. What influences the group to be in a process? Remember, the process are the aspect that makes the group to function. The aspect that makes the group to function, interaction. Without interaction, there's no group process. You need to interact to one another. Interactions form the core aspects of communication. common goals. Common goals. The similar the goals, the common goals is the more the more you'll find ways of working together. It's the more you discover more things about yourself. It's the more the group will function. Interaction among members, group goals. So they're essential in the process of human groups. Thirdly, group polarization. What is group polarization? Okay, before I move to group polarization, I can see in the textbook when I explain interaction among group members as well as common goals, they mention a term called social loofing. Social loofing. What is social loofing? They say social loofing occurs when a group member feels that their individual's performance is not evaluated or acknowledged. Okay, within the group, we ask what aspects will affect the communication process? Which aspects will affect the communication process? That is group is social loofing. The aspect that can affect interaction. You might find that within a group, some people don't want to talk or choose not to talk. So they mention one aspect that influence people not to participate or talk, to involve themselves in a group, is an aspect called social loofing. So social loofing occurs when it's whereby the group member feels that their efforts, their individual efforts, are not being recognized, are not being evaluated, they are not taken serious, they are not being acknowledged. When you work and put efforts in doing certain activities, in performing tasks, and you find that you are not being recognized, you are not being paid attention to, your input, you will withdraw your input. You will avoid the interaction. You avoid working for that organization, meaning there won't be interaction among members. Because I choose to keep quiet because I'm not recognized for what I'm saying. That is interaction among group members. Then group polarization. The interaction among group members and the fact that they share common goals have a moderating effect on the personal views that individuals individuals members. Okay, let me start afresh. Group polarization. I'm reading from the textbook. They say the interactions among group members and the fact that they share common goals have a moderating effect on their personal views that individual group members have. Okay, let's do this. They say interaction among the group and the fact that you share common goals have a moderating effect. The moderating effect meaning in a moderate effect, moderate, almost as an equal effect on people's personal views and individuals group have. Therefore, groups serve to temper extreme views, and group norms tend to be more towards moderate position. However, this may not be necessarily the case. Sometimes group views swift toward extreme position. Here they are trying to differentiate what might lead to extreme views within a group, what might lead to personal views. Because as a group is due to conflict. Not all views will be accepted. Not all views will be taken serious. Not all views will make the group to function effectively due to different challenges. They say, however, this may not necessarily be the case. Sometimes group views swing toward extreme position. This is known as group polarization. What is group polarization? Group polarization occurs when existing individuals' positions, views, ideas, and position become more extreme during group decision. This may happen when a group member gets information from one another that supports and arguments that initial individual position. Group polarization. Group polarization occurs when an existing opinion or views or ideas and a position become extreme during group discussion. You might find that while we are discussing certain concepts, we are discussing, suddenly there's this extreme intensity within organizational views. You are discussing psychology, PYC1502. Suddenly there's a certain point or certain unit that takes your emotion high, the extreme view. Then you tend to focus on it, discussing it. That normally happens. You'll find mostly amongst male friends who are discussing soccer. So initially, they will discuss soccer openly. Suddenly, there's one view that stimulates their minds extremely. Then the voices goes up. Some they fight with their views, not physically, but that argument, that hits in an argument when you discuss. Within a discussion. That's why they say group polarization occurs when existing individual position opinions, views, ideas, and positions become more extreme during group discussions. This may happen when group members get information from one another that supports an argument that their initial individual position. The group norms may often shift from moderate to rational. So that is group polarization. You're discussing, suddenly there's a hit up in the argument. Group conflicts. Group conflicts. The interaction among group members may not always go smoothly. Group conflicts. The interaction among group members may not always go smoothly. In fact, group conflicts between members is unavoidable in the life of any group. The interaction among group members may not always go smooth. In fact, group conflicts between members is unavoidable. So a conflict is non-avoidable because we are human beings. We differ. We have tempers. We have likes and dislikes. So you cannot avoid conflict. Members may have different expectations of the group they belong to. This may be about what the group means for them and what they can get out of it. They may not agree about the group goals, methods of achieving them. They may differ about the way in which the resources are distributed. So it will depend on the group conflict. What is it that challenges you? What challenges the other group might not challenge you. Group conflict. So in short, group conflicts are based on anything that might transpire within an organization. Distribution of resources, giving each other an opportunity to speak lies. Yeah, those are the few that I could think of now. Then there's a groupthink. Groupthink. If conflict can threaten a group existence, the other side of the coin is equally dangerous. If conflict can threaten group existence, the other side of the coin is equally dangerous. They say if conflict could transpire within an organization, you need to deal with it instantly. You need to manage it because the conflict might transpire more. The conflicts might continue. In groups that are highly cohesive, we have mentioned the group that are highly cohesive. We mean the groups that are complement one another. The group is that make sure that they are not being criticized. The group that make sure that they stand towards each other. That's group cohesion. They share similar goals. In a group that is highly cohesive, group members may become overly aligned with the group goals. This can lead to a phenomenon known as groupthink. This occurs in a cohesive group where the group places anonymity ahead of the critical thinking. That decisions are taken in an unconsidered and uncritical manner. So it depends. This can lead to a phenomenon known as a groupthink. So what is groupthink? They say, if in groups that are highly cohesive, as I've mentioned, in groups that are highly cohesive, group members become overly aligned with a group goal. This can lead to a phenomenon known as groupthink. So when a high cohesive group, when they're aligned, let me just say this. When a high cohesive group, a group that is more common, a group that is supports one another, when they have that high cohesiveness, they tend to pursue similar goals. That is called groupthink. What is groupthink? Groupthink is whereby occurs when a high cohesive group aligns its goal to the group. That is groupthink. They think alike. They do similar things. They facilitate common attributes. That is groupthink. This occurs in cohesive groups when the groups places anonymity ahead of critical thinking. That decisions are taken in any unconsidered and critical manner. This happens when the group has a directive leader which limits alternative from group members. However, groupthink, that does not mean that groupthink are positive. Remember, I said in high cohesive group members may become overly aligned with the group members. However, the negative part of it is that the decisions that are made within a group and within a groupthink are not critical. Why not critical? Because most of the decisions are made by a group leader. Other people's views are not considered most of the time. They are in an uncritical way. They say the leader of the group limits the alternative, limits the viewpoints, the participation within the group. It can also happen when the group is under pressure to take conceptual decisions. Below there, they give us aspects that we could think of under the group discussion by Jordan. According to Jordan, 1988, 1989, 1999, 1998, they say when group cohesive creates an illusion of invulnerability and limitless power. When group cohesiveness creates an illusion of invulnerability and limited power. When a group relies on stereotyping people and situations rather than observing the actual facts. When the group believes strongly in the inherited morality of its own rights of existence. When an illusion of anonymity of the group puts pressure. So groupthink is whereby a group has certain individuals that they believe. We are in a group discussion, twice see students. When you give them the view, they don't take it serious unless perhaps Jolene says it. You don't believe what Nombos was saying, but as soon as Jolene says 1, 2, 3, then you start to believe. That is part of group thinking. When it depends on who shares the information. So this is based on stereotyping view, an illusion, limited of power, anonymity. So that's it with regard to grouping. Then we have patterns of leadership as well as fellowship. Patterns of leadership as well as fellowship. They give you the group is influenced by the type of leadership that facilitates the group. Leadership is influenced by not leadership. Groups are influenced by leadership style. Leadership style could be charismatic leader, transformational leader, super leader, leader through personal trait, of which you will study on your own. Those aspects are the ones that influence the group functionality, the type of leadership within the group. Then we have followership. Again, the followership, those one who make sure that the group functions, the additional members, again, influence the group functionality. Those are the followerships. Differentiation of groups. Now we are done with the attributes of the group. Let's discuss the differentiation of the groups. Remember, I said to you, the attributes of human groups, differentiation of group and interaction of human groups. So attribute of human group is a bit long compared to differentiation. Differentiation of human group is just divided into three. What distinguishes the group? Number one, social categorization, followed by social stereotyping, social identity. As soon as you identify yourself in terms of social identity. Remember, identity, when you say self-identity is what makes you unique. How do you identify yourself? You identify yourself through your own self-identity. How are you different from others? It's through my identity. So social identity suggests that individual self-concept have two components, namely personal identity and social identity. What makes a human being, according to social identity, is personal identity. Personal identity. When I look at myself, when I look into myself, how would I like people to see myself? How I would like to be viewed? What is it that I see in myself through self-concept? That is personal identity. Then the social identity. How I would like others to see myself, how I can apply myself to the outside world. So it's social identity. It's no longer my personal identity, but social identity. Then the social stereotyping. That's what makes us different as well. Social stereotyping. How I see myself compared to others. It's simply a tendency of jumping into impressions of what other people are like. Jumping into certain impressions on how other people are like. That is simply social stereotyping. Zulu people are like this. Venda people are like this. White people are like this. Yes, you can say that white people are like this, Zulu people are like this, but your statements shouldn't be based on biasness. It shouldn't be based on prejudice. You shouldn't be based on jumping into conclusions. Whatever that you say, there should be an evidence, and there should be based on discrimination. It's simply a tendency of jumping into impression of what other people are like. Stereotypes are beliefs and expectations about people. So stereotypes not only about judgment based on racial judgment. It's not based on racial judgment. However, you can look at the other groups and you say, hey, let's say it's PYC student 1501. When you study, you meet 9 o'clock, 11 o'clock, you leave. That's your normal time. You meet 11 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock, you meet 9 o'clock, 11 o'clock, you leave. Then the other groups, the law students, or the other groups who are doing the similar module, then they try to make judgment that those one will fail. They are not studying. They come and study for 2 hours and leave. Meaning you're jumping into conclusions. You don't know their personal lives. You don't know their additional activities. You don't know when they leave their groups, where do they go? As soon as you say aspect like that, they will fail because they study. They're coming here to play. It's simply a tendency to jump into impression of what other people are like. Stereotypes are beliefs and expectations about people, expectation that you'll fail, they'll behave like this. The kind of expectation can be either positive or negative. So, most important facts, stereotyping view are not only negative, there are some positive, which you normally use them as jokes. What is a joke to me, to some people it may not be a joke, but it depends. Some are negative, they will make people to fight with you. Some people will just laugh at you because this is portrayed as a joke. Social categorization. Then we have social categorization. A group is formed when a number of individuals are seen to be similar. Remember, category, you categorize things. When you go to ShopRite, things are placed into categories. You'll find spices here, tomatoes here, veggies are here, fridges are here. Again, within a fridge, ice cream, you'll find ice cream is here, cheese are here, milk is placed here, are categorized. Social category. Yeah, social category meaning you are placed differently. A group is formed when a number of individuals are seen to be similar in some respects, but also differ from others with regard to a matter in question. Social categories, we normally apply this instance by saying there's an in group and an out group. In group and an out group. Out group, which is us. Us as a psychology student, we are referring to ourselves as in group. We are referring to as the in group. Then there are those who are studying law outside, the financial accounting, the engineering. We say it's them. It is them, the outer group, because they don't belong to us. It's an outer group. Then you have similarity and the difference. Similarity and the differences. Social categories based on the similarities and difference. What are we similar with? What are we different? What is it that makes us to be different? Social categorization. Social stereotype and social. So this is one is short. I think you'll understand it. Moving on to our last part. Last part under interaction. No, it's not the last part actually. Interaction of groups. It falls under differentiation of group. Intergroup relation. We have individual level expectations, interpersonal level expectation, position level expectation, and ideological level expectations. Intergroup, individual level expectation, they say, these are expectations that try to explain the nature of intergroup relation in terms of individual dynamic and personality factors. How do we study group? We study groups through intergroup relation. Number one, individual level explanation. We study groups through their individual dynamic and the personal factors. What makes the group? The group is made up of personal factors. Your personality factors influence the group. Individual dynamics influence the group. Interpersonal level explanation. The explanations that fall in the category deal with the theory that explains the interpersonal relationship. Groups are made up of interpersonal personal interaction. We need to communicate, we need to talk. Positional level expectations. The theories in these categories deal with group type interaction. Position level, group type interaction, group to group type of interaction, not just individuals from one person to the next, but group, not individual, but the group type. Ideological level explanation. Explanation in this category explains the general belief system in the group. The general belief system within the group. The belief system, as I said, the group might be we differ in personality, we differ racially, our cultural background differ, gender as well. You have different belief system. Explain the general belief system. So the keywords under ideology, general belief system. Keywords under positional level, group type interaction. Interpersonal is straight to the point. Explain interpersonal relationship. individual dynamic and personality factors. Then they broaden up the intergroup cooperativeness. One thing that is nice about this module, we give you a content explanation and we give you guidelines on how to manage certain aspects within yourself, how to manage cultures perhaps, like this one, intergroup cooperativeness, how to deal with intergroup cooperativeness. They say number one, create a social norm. A certain group member standard influenced by commonality. Create a social norm. Maintain equal status of members of different groups. Maintain interpersonal contacts. Maintain the perception between in-group and out-group. Maintain cooperative activity. Cooperative activities is maintained by setting common goals, common ideas and values. Develop a multicultural ethos and awareness that individual groups are different. Develop a critical consciousness of oppressive pattern. Cure operation ways to deal with oppressed patterns. Develop critical conscious oppressive patterns. Cure operation ways to deal with oppressive patterns. So these are the guidelines on how to deal with intergroup cooperativeness. So usually in multiple choice, what we'll do, we might give you a scenario or a statement based on intergroup cooperativeness. Then we say to you, the option will be next to each statement. We include all the statements next to each. You say A, B, C, D, E, F. Perhaps we include H, I, perhaps to K. Some options that does not belong here. Then under the question, you say, which 5 intergroup cooperativeness are mentioned below? Which 5 intergroup cooperativeness are mentioned below? We give you this option, we add others. We play around them. Then you need to choose 5 that falls under intergroup cooperativeness. So it will depend how the questions comes up. Okay. Okay, guys. So for now, we are done with group functioning. We are done with the group functioning, the aspects of group. Before we move to the second chapter for today, which is societal issues.
Sia, when you were talking about groupthink, one of the things that you said is facilitate common, and I don't know what the last word was. I just was trying to write down a sentence.
Okay, can you please repeat? I said.
So you said facilitate common something. So I don't know what that something was that you said.
I was trying to explain what do I mean by high cohesiveness. I said high cohesive groups are those type of groups that they share a commonality. Those type of groups that share common goals are those type of groups that when they're being criticized, they stand for the group, they fight for the group. They don't allow criticism to enter within the group. So those individuals, that type of group is referred to a high cohesive group. They say it is in your textbook. Your textbook under group things, line number 2, they say in groups that are high cohesive, group members may become overly aligned with the group goals. Do I make sense, Nicole?
No, I understand the whole concept. I just missed the last word that you said in the sentence. It was facilitate common something. So
I forgot.
I wrote down attributes, but I don't think that's correct.
Okay, I'm not sure what I was explaining. Yeah, okay, but as long as you understand the concept.
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Okay, let's move to, I can see the no hands up. Let's move to the last part of our discussion, which is social issues, then you are done. Social issues is short, then you are done. I've combined the two chapters because they have some similarities, and they are both short to do for 2 hours. Social issues is one chapter that is straight to the point. I've mentioned that as a psychologist, you work as a consultant. Once you are a consultant, if you are not a consultant, you're working for a clinic. Once you work for a nearby clinic or a government health facility organization, you'll be required to do outreach programs. When there's a need within a community and they cannot afford to go to a private psychologist, they have a right to go to a health facility and ask for assistance. They sign some documents, then whether the nurses, the doctors will come to that community. Same applies to the psychologists. That can happen. Or when you open your consultation, when you apply for jobs, these are the things that you need to consider within that community. I would like to move to a certain environment to stay there. What I need to consider: crime rates, violence, discrimination, the development of the community, poor community, a place to stay, preventive measures. So now these factors affect us all, whether it is within the community, regardless of how educated we are, regardless of our level of education. These are social issues that affects us all. You must stay in, let's say, Sentin. They have their own challenges. There is one who stays in Orange Farms, one stays in Brown Fisher, one stays in Tembisa. We have different challenges. However, some are common. Let's assume that when you are staying in Sentin, you are being called to do some activities there, psychological interventions. That's what happened. That's why you have to study social issues. They're giving you an opportunity to know more, to know more besides psychological measures, besides applying psychology into people's minds, into society, but what factors might influence people to do these activities. Let's make an example: xenophobic attacks, the looting that was happening in Gauteng, most in Gauteng and Durban. You as a psychologist, when they hire you to measure, they say the question is, what influence people to do looting? Some will come and say, no, it's crime, it's violence. Someone will come and say, no, it's violence, it's unemployment. Unemployment is poor communities. Now, some will say, no, it's discrimination because most foreign shops were looted compared to South African citizen shops. Depends on the place you stay. Some communities didn't engage in looting, some did engage. So what are the preventive measures? How can you stop this in the near future? So that's how you apply it, to see that these things, they link to one another. Violence. Violence begins when one person fails to esteem the other person and stop representing the other person's dignity and start to abuse him or her. Again, this is an important part. Are you aware that some people can't define certain aspects, like violence? As this is broken down here, they say violence begins when one fails to esteem the other person, but disrespecting her. So violence is not just about hitting a person physically, slapping the person, or sexual intercourse. It's not only based on physical aspects of violence. They say violence begins when one fails. So if a person fails to disrespect you, your dignity, and start abusing you, and that is violence on its own. So it's important as a psychologist or a student psychologist to know this concept, to know how to break down this concept. Because again, when you go to court, that's where they confuses you. They try to break down. But you've mentioned that this person has evaluated you. How did he evaluate you? He evaluates you. How did he evaluate you? Because they know how to break these terms to confuses you. I had to attend to one of the cases recently in my community. I was asked to come just to intervene with one of the rape victims. I just say victims. I won't mention any names. I'm giving you a scenario. I was consulted to come there just to talk to a person, to guide a person what steps to take once they've been victimized, sexually victimized. Then I went there, I spoke to the person. That's why I realized with regard to us within our society, it's challenging for us to define certain terms. The person, as old as she is, she didn't know the definition of sexual assault. So that's what you do normally. You ask what understanding of what happened. Then the person will start now saying, I was not actually a sexual assaulted because the person did this and that to me. Only to realize with any form of penetration is rape. So the person is often an idea that no, my uncle just put a finger, not a penis. According to the person, that was not a rape. So you have to explain to the person, you break down the concept. So if you don't know that, as a student psychologist, a psychologist in aspiring psychology, it will be difficult to advise a person if you don't know how to break down the terms, the psychological terms, in order to make sense to people. If I didn't know that any form of penetration is rape, I would have said, no, the person didn't rape you because it did not penetrate you with a penis. Same applies to violence. You need to know this concept. You need to be able to have an ability to break down these concepts, regardless of your age. Again, when you explain this concept to the community, don't assume that they know. Explain them as if you're explaining for the kids. When you explain rape, break it down so that it can be clear. Don't cut corners. Violence, when you explain violence, break it down. Like they're saying here, violence begins when one person fails to esteem the other person, stop respecting the other person's dignity, and start to abuse him or her. That's why in law they will say, you have violated my rights. The person was not beaten physical, but no, you have violated my rights. I didn't beat your rights. That doesn't mean I've beaten your rights, but you have violated my rights, meaning you have blocked me from achieving something, meaning you have violated my rights as a person. So violence here, violence for material gains, domestic violence, sexual violence, the state and collective violence, self-directed violence. When I come to you and point a gun on you and say, give me that phone, that is a form of violence because you forced me to do something. So violence for material gains, violence for domestic violence, there's psychological violence and physical violence. Sexual violence, spanking is part of sexual violence. Taking your nude pictures to online and post them online without your consent is part of sexual violence. State and collective violence, self-directed violence. Self-directed violence in most is suicide. The main three approaches to understanding violence is instinct or social biological approaches, sees violence as an inborn survival strategy. When they say instinct and social biological, like we were discussing last week, I think it's sensation and perception. We've mentioned that aggressiveness, we were discussing whether aggressiveness and frustration, are you born with aggressiveness as well as frustration, or you learn to be aggressive? What influences aggressiveness? Then we've discussed that, we concluded that you are born, the author said, the theory said you are born with aggressiveness. However, now and again, that form of aggressiveness needs to be released. How to release aggressiveness? Animals' aggressiveness, which is influenced by the sexual desires. I made an example of an elephant. An elephant, when an elephant is in a mating season of an elephant and does not find any mates, it's become aggressive, hitting trees. You don't need to see yourself next to an elephant during the mating season when the hormones are high. Same applies to a lion. They become aggressive. The animals, they fight one another for mating. So they say instinct. These forms of violence, they say, are we born with violence, or in violence is influenced by certain aspects? Are we born violently? Is there some aspect of violence within us? So according to this theory, they say, sees violence as the inborn survival strategy. So they're concluding that it sees violence as a survival strategy to survive, to move away from what is frustrating you, you become violent. Let's look at in the case of if you are being robbed or mugged, within you there's that inner you that wants to fight back because you don't want to lose your assets. There's that inner you that you want to fight back, even though you won't fight. But you there's that agitation, that angriness, meaning you are born with that sort of violence within us. When you want to achieve something, you become violent. When the door lock doesn't want to open, we try to force it to open. That aggressiveness that you are born with. They say explain violence as an outcome of frustration. We become frustrated and we become frustrated, then we act into violence. Observational learning approach. We learn violence through direct reinforcement, through modeling our behavior, or that than of others. I wanted to write than. We learn violence through direct reinforcement, through modeling our behavior than of others, on that of others. We learn through observing. I made an example last week again, as well as said. When you go to to buy a product, whether in a shopping center or spaza shop, then you find that the service is slow there. Then you start complaining. No, the service is slow due to the service is slow and you want to get your burger now. You are hungry, you want your burger now. So to avoid the cashiers there or the chefs, to avoid you complaining, they give you your orders so that they can get rid of you to leave. Then you say, no, man. If I complain, then I will get my order so quick. Then you develop that pattern, meaning it's observational pattern. You have observed that when you become aggressive, you get your things done. Looting started by few personnel, or when xenophobia happens most of the time, then people they start looting shop. Few individuals start. The leaders. Those, I'm not saying the leaders, I'm not referring to the leaders of the communities. I mean the leaders of those groups who want to open the group. They go to that particular shop. Those few leaders, they hit the door, open the doors aggressively. As soon as the door opens, they take the things, run away. You can see that no, there are no police around. No one is reprimanding you. Then you start running and doing the same. When looting comes again, you are the first person now. You run in front to loot. Meaning, that is observational learning. You have seen it, you have modeled the behavior, you have seen that you can get away with it. Because normally there are no repercussions due to police force, us not reporting one another. Then you get used to, okay, when I act like this, nothing will happen to me. That's observational learning. A tendency to do one thing over and over again because of seeing others doing it. Discrimination. Discrimination is a negative behavior towards members of a particular group. It is usually based on the stereotypic ideas about the group which leads to prejudice against its members. So prejudice works along with the stereotype and discrimination. So being negative towards others. I've mentioned that stereotype is either positive or negative. However, discrimination, that's totally negative. Discrimination is a negative behavior toward the members of a particular group. We are negative. It is usually based on stereotypic views about the group, which lead to prejudice against its members. So unfair criticism. Prejudice is a specific form of an attitude. That's what you need to look at. Discrimination is a behavior. Prejudice, attitude. Stereotype are ideas, what you say with your mouth. That's how they differ. Prejudice is a specific form of an attitude that is negative and is characterized by hateful speech and irrational beliefs. That is prejudice. Stereotype ideas about the group are based on ignorance and false, encompassed by knowledge about it. So let me show the difference between these two. Stereotype. In order to see that a person is stereotyped, the person needs to say certain things. That's how we can see that the person is stereotyped. I can keep quiet knowing that I don't like certain things. I don't like this group. I don't like the way people are doing their things there. However, I keep my mouth shut. You cannot come to me and say that I'm stereotyped because I haven't said anything. So stereotype is ideas. As soon as you say it to people, that's what you can conclude because you have said it. You are showing stereotyping remarks because you have said 1, 2, 3. And then there's prejudice. Prejudice is, they say, is a form of an attitude. So we can see an attitude. You cannot see an attitude. You can only measure an attitude. An attitude is within individuals. However, we can see through the gestures of the face. If I pass and you frown, meaning there's a form of a dislike you have against me, or I'm smelling. I pass next to you, suddenly and you frown. There's something. Or suddenly I think, I don't know what they call it. But I show that, meaning there's a form of dislike that I have towards you. I'm not saying anything, but I'm acting. I'm portraying a negative or think attitude towards you. Prejudice is a form of an attitude that is negative, is characterized by hatefulness and irrational beliefs. Then we have a discrimination. Discrimination is a negative behavior towards members of a particular group. So a negative behavior, it goes far as soon as you apply, you are part of xenophobic attack, meaning you are discriminating. As soon as you are categorizing people, these people need to stay there. They don't belong in this group. They need to stay wherever they are. You don't need to pass here. You, whether blacks or Zulus, Indians, you don't need to hear. That's where discrimination comes. You negative. You are being negative toward other particular members of the group. You are being specific on those groups. It's not just discrimination. It's not just a stereotyping view, but you are being specific to the particular groups. Stereotype and prejudice are belief system. So that's what you need to know as a consultant when you visit this organization, when you go to employment, when you explain this task, you need to break them down so that they can make sense. Hence, I'm breaking them down now. When they say attitude, what do they mean? When they say a behavior, what's the difference between a behavior and an attitude and an action? You need to break down those terms because we are tested out there. They come to us asking, I heard that you're studying psychology. What is this? Can you read my mind? They even lean our heads towards us. Can you read my mind? Annoying us. So normally they need questions. So help them in defining these terms. Help them in breaking down this concept. Because you find people as well, they say she has attitude while you are passing the street, but you have an attitude. Who doesn't have an attitude? You are born with an attitude. So as soon as you have an attitude, meaning you don't have an attitude, you are born without an attitude. Meaning you are not complete. As soon as you say she has an attitude, you also have an attitude. For saying that, meaning you are portraying a certain attitude towards him or her. We all have attitude. And that's when you try to break them down. Negative attitude, positive attitude. Why are you saying that? What can you detect that for you to conclude that this person has a negative or positive attitude? Moving on. The development of poor communities. Poverty is not simply about being deprived of necessities such as food, medicine, clothing, but also about living in a situation of hopelessness, uncertainty about the future, and alienation from mainstream society. So what they're trying to say here is that poverty, they're trying to say that poverty is not just lacking the resources, but is a state of mind. Yes, we might not have medication, certain clothing, eating like other people. However, the most challenging thing about poverty, the most crucial matter here, since you are doing psychology, poverty is you being helplessness. You have seen certain people who don't have hope that their lives can change. They're hopeless. Even if you can give him money now, he or she will be excited for now that I have money. But as soon as that money runs off, or what is it that to do with this money? Their hopelessness. That is poverty in psychology terms. Hopelessness, uncertain about your future, and legitimacy, hopeless that anything can change in your life. You're accepting the situation as they are. That is the most challenging thing about poverty. It's not just food, it's not just clothing, water, but you believing that the situation won't be able to change. That the situation won't change. I think this is the last one, if not mistaken. A place to stay. The environment as a physical space. The environment as extension to self. The environment as an social system or societal issues. At the back. Just bear with me. I'm trying to open my textbook. Okay. A place to stay. A place to stay. Environment as a physical space. They say when people move into a new environment, when people move to a new environment, whether it's due to work relocating, finding a new job, going to stay there permanently, going to a new school. They say when people move into a new environment for the first time, they're actually aware of its characteristics such as shape, noise, and colors. As they settle into the environment, the physical features become less obstructive, but the environment move and interact. But the environment continues to influence them. It's physical characteristics that determines how you move or interact within the environment. Okay, what they're trying to say here is that you move to Cape Town. You move to Cape Town. You have your own expectation. You heard that there's an ocean. Some people are using yachts. The place is beautiful. Studying there, the weather is good. You know those aspects. You know the shops. You go there aware that, okay, this is a conducive place to stay. However, they say the place is not constant. The place changes. Why are they saying the place changes? It changes because of the people that are living there. It does not change physically. You might like the place. However, the people that you hang around with, the people that you are working with, the environment might change through crime rate. Issues like the use of drugs around that place, perhaps prostitution, any factor that might change your mindset, even though you love the place physically, but any factor that might change will influence you psychologically. Its physical characteristics determine how its physical characteristics determines how people move and interact in the environment. Some influence are more subtle. Color, texture, smell create atmosphere that influence people's moods. Environment influence can be strong, that they cause identification of the attachment. Again, on the positive note, they say each and every environment that you move into, yes, they say if there's crime rate, meaning you won't be able to socialize as much as you want. It's difficult to go to, perhaps to the taverns, to chill there, to the parking, even though the physical aspects of the environment is beautiful, but I can't go. It's challenging now to go to a park and do a picnic with your loved ones, unless you hire security guards to protect you. So that's what they're saying. They say the environment is a physical space. As much as you like the church, the environment, the surrounding also influences you, influences how you do your things. If you stay next to an ocean, chances are you might learn how to swim because you stay next to an ocean. You might be comfortable with undressing, staying naked because you like the atmosphere. It stimulates you well when you are undressed. You might because you need to buy short pants, you buy swimming wears. So they influence the way of living. Your people might like visiting you there because you are staying next to the ocean. You always get visitors. So they say how the environment might influence your personality, how the environment might influence operating space. Then the environment is an extension to the self. An environment is an extension to the self. They say an environment may cause us to experience strong emotions attached to all aspects of the environment, to an extent that we feel as though our inner being is expressed in and throughout it. The environment feels like part of my being. It becomes something through which we express ourselves. In a sense, it's an extension of our identity. So it depends who and what we are expressing, whom and what we express ourselves. You see, the environment is an extension to yourself. How well does the environment again influences you, yourself, your personality? How does it influence your personality? Attachment to your emotions. You'll hear people when they move out, just I just need a peace of mind. I find it hard to find a peace of mind here. I need to relocate. I need to change the environment. For instance, me doing the classes, now and again I change the settings because I will hear that okay, our next door neighbors there's a funeral next week. Then I need to make sure that I move away from that place, or there's a party because it distracts me. If not, at home, I have visitors. I cannot always chase out visitors. Instead, chase out yourself, run away, book somewhere. You need to move. So each and every environment that I choose, you need to be an extension to the self, to what I feel like in a particular moment. Have you heard, I'm avoiding some knocks. They want to get in, meaning now and again, you need to choose a conducive working environment that is an extension to yourself, that you're able to do your things uninterruptedly. The environment is a social system. There are 4 elements that characterize the social aspects of the environment. That is privacy, personal space, territory, and crowding. Privacy. What is privacy? They say privacy is not the need to be alone. Privacy is not the need to be alone. When you close your door and say to people, no, I need privacy, it's not just the need to be alone, but privacy rather is a need to control how much interaction we have with other people. It's the need to control how much interaction we need with other people. For example, closed doors. For the fact that I closed my door, I closed my blinder, I put a note there that please do not disturb. Meaning, I need privacy, not just because I don't want to be alone. You want to chase out people. However, what you need to do, you want to be able to control the environment that you're in. You want to be able to do your things. They say privacy is divided into three. One, it establishes boundaries between us and others, create personal space. These boundaries can be physical, for example, closed doors. Psychological example, by refraining from answering questions that you find unable to answer. You're refraining from answering door knocks, meaning privacy. Whether they hear that you're in or not, by refraining and keeping quiet and focusing on what is important, that is privacy. You're not responding. At times, even people, when they see you, you're busy with your phone passing. Hey, Sia! Then I keep my mouth shut and continue, whether they like me or not. But that is a form of privacy. You are going somewhere and you don't want to explain your actions to people. That's where you're going. It's a form of privacy. It enables us to control how much others know about us. The control can be formal and informal. By formal, I mean it refers to official agreements you sign with organizations to keep your information privately. Privacy also allows us opportunity for self-reflection. We need time to our own to regain our our sense of self. Informal, we mean is how much we tell others about yourself, how much you tell others about yourselves. Then personal space. What is personal space? Personal space refers to the amount of space we need between ourselves and others. That is personal space. Again, personal space doesn't mean that you want to be alone as well. Personal space does not mean that you don't want people to see you, but you need your personal space. You are sitting in the library, you are studying, but I choose to sit there around the corner, meaning I need my personal space. Not that I don't need people, personal space. You can sit there. I sit here. Don't come next to me. Personal space. So you're choosing the distance, the space among yourself and other people. You don't want to see yourself in a crowded environment. That's your personal space. Territoriality refers to a place we select that we demarcate it as ours. Territory. Normally in our households, we grew up and we were told that that seat, only the men of the house sit there. The head of the house, the men sit there. Don't sit in that chair. Only my dad sit there. We are told that. That meaning it's territorial. Stamping authority that I need to be sit there, not other person. So it's territorial. In the boardroom, there's the chair that the chairperson or the one who chairs the meeting, you need to sit there due to the hierarchy within the organization, meaning you are territorial. Crowding, which is the last one, crowding. Crowding is our subjective experience of a number of people around us. Subjective experience of a number of people around us. I don't like crowding. Crowding, it differs. When it's a person say I don't like crowding. To me, crowding may be 5 people. To some, crowding may be 10 personnel. To some, crowding may be 50 people. So it depends on the individuals. Crowding is differentiated by the number of individuals. Then there are cases whereby we don't mind sitting around 20 people as long as you are not presenting anything, as long as you are not the one who is talking. That's how we differentiate crowding as well. You say to the person, but now and again, you are with a group of people. What do you mean when you say you're not comfortable within a crowding? Let's look at this case. We are a group of people in a class, attending to a class. I've been talking for long. Then I say to you, Cholin, stand up and present for us. Then Cholin starts saying, no, so I'm not comfortable in presenting in front of the class. Let's look at this in this instance. You have managed to come in the class and sit, even you sit in front of 20 students. You have listened, you have an ability to ask question and response. But now the situation changed. I say, please present for us. Assist means presenting. Then you start saying, no, I fear the crowd. Meaning, crowd, it differs. Fearing the crowd or have a social phobia depends on what you do within that crowd. Perhaps if I could say, Jolene, sing, because you love singing, you've been singing in front of people, you must stand up and sing, because that's your strength. You believe in your voice, you start singing. But when I say present, you can't present. So that is how crowding takes place. For instance, they say soccer players. Soccer players, they enter into the field, they know that they're playing soccer for millions of people. However, if you can ask that person, no, come to my school and do some presentations. I want you to do some presentations, perhaps, regarding life skills. No, I can't do that. I'm not used to doing that. Meaning, these are different type of crowds. Here, there are people that sing me, different type of crowd. So crowding differs from one individual to the next. Lastly, our last for a day, preventive interventions. Research indicates that most preventive measures. Research indicates that most emotional and behavioral problems have their origins in environments characterized by poverty and violence. Preventive measures are necessary to counter these effects. To each and every community, there are challenges. Challenges, they say, most are caused by poverty and violence. However, there are preventive measures, not that there are no solutions. You'll find in certain communities, research indicates that most emotional and behavioral problems have their origins in environments characterized by poverty and violence. So I've mentioned that to each and every, most of the issues, the core, where does the problem stems from? It stems from poverty and violence. So they say preventive measures are necessary to counter these effects. The preventive measures mostly are us as the community. It comes from us as a community. Certain issues, certain challenges, you don't need to consult health institutions, social development, or the police to deal with them. For instance, violence and crime. In some communities, you'll find them forming what is called crime prevention forums, community dealing with the crime. And as soon as the police, when they come, at least you have a structure that you're based on. You can identify certain personnel that are engaged in criminal activities. Same applies to poverty, food, the necessity of food. Instead of going to the social development, scanting for sponsors, some organizations have what you call feeding scheme. They do food and provide for the needy for that particular time of the day. Perhaps you come once a day or twice. Depends, or the church members can do that, or you can donate a certain amount, small amount to assist. So those are preventive measures that you don't need always to go to certain institutions for assistance. So that is it in preventive measures. So thanks very much, guys.